good at remembering things. I have to go back and look. In 1773, several more Methodist missionaries came to America. One of them, Thomas Rankin, had been given Francis's job as Wesley's new assistant. It was difficult for Francis to step down from being the leader, but he knew that he had done his best. In less than a year, he had ridden over 2,000 miles and preached over 300 times. Brother Rankin had not been in America long when he realized that the situation between the Patriots and Loyalists was turning desperate. He was horrified when he learned that Patriots had sneaked, I would say snuck, on ships in the Boston harbor and smashed crates of tea. They had thrown them into the water to show their anger over the tea tax. "We'll have no taxation without representation," had been their cry. At first, only a third of the Americans were patriots, but every day there were more. Some of the Methodist preachers were loyal to England, but others wanted America to separate and be her own country. Francis tried to stay neutral. Most of the preachers were so busy trying to spread scriptural holiness that their hands were full. "Brother Asbury, we're glad you're here. Where have you come from?" the man asked as he helped rub down Francis's horse. "Well, I've been in Maryland quite a bit," Francis answered. "How are things there?" Francis' friend inquired. Francis sighed. "Ever since England dumped thousands of convicts from their prisons into Maryland, things have been tough. The people were so ungodly, but God has done a wonderful change in the hearts of many. Since Maryland has the Act of Toleration, it is supposed to defend everyone who preaches." Francis stared into the darkness. "But I'm afraid that things are changing. A storm is coming." Francis was right. By 1775, the British Redcoats and the American Minutemen were fighting at Lexington and Concord. George Washington was named the commander-in-chief of the American forces. At first, it seemed like John Wesley was sympathetic to the colonists. Then he wrote a little book against the Patriots called A Calm Address to Our American Colonies. When Francis found out about the book, he was alarmed. Why, oh why did John Wesley get involved? He was over in England and did not really understand the situation. 40,000 copies of A Calm Address were sold in 3 weeks. It spread like wildfire. "Look at the things this John Wesley has printed about us colonists. This proves what I always thought. Those Methodists are a bunch of dirty Tories." Guards were stopping the preachers as they traveled. Tension was high as British warships were in the bays and battles were taking place. The Methodist cathedral had been taken over by force and used as a riding school for the Redcoats cavalry. When the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence, the Methodist preachers felt the pressure. It was like a noose was coming around their necks. Strain was showing on Brother Rankin's face as he worried. "I'm afraid all of us British-born preachers need to go back to England." "It would be an eternal dishonor to the Methodists," Francis wrote in his journal, "that we should all leave 3,000 souls. A good shepherd does not leave his flock in time of danger. Therefore, I am determined, by the grace of God, not to leave them, let the consequence be what it may." The consequences were that Francis was arrested in Maryland. Maryland, that had always been so tolerant of preachers, now said that he had to have a license to preach. He was given a fine of £5, almost all the money he would make for 3 months. People were not allowed to pray for the king or to travel without a passport. The noose was tightening. By 1778, all the British missionaries had left for England or Canada except one, Francis Asbury. As Francis hid out at his friend's house, he felt bleak and miserable. "But it is no wonder," he told himself. "I'm 3,000 miles from home. My friends have left me. I am considered by some as an enemy of the country, every day liable to be seized by violence and abused." Francis decided that it was a small thing to suffer for Jesus. Although John Wesley had not appointed him, Francis was once again the leader of the Methodists in America. Only the American preachers were left. Francis left Maryland and went to his friend Judge Thomas White. He knew he could hide out there until the worst of the storm blew over. Francis paced the room at Judge White's house. He was thankful that he had somewhere safe to go, but it was difficult being tied down. He wanted to be free to spread the gospel. Yes, he nodded, it was true. He had a small circuit that he could ride, but he mainly was forced to stay put. Suddenly, he heard a loud banging noise out downstairs on the door. He looked out the window and saw soldiers in the yard. He could hear angry voices downstairs, and then all was quiet. In a while, he heard footsteps behind him. Mrs. White was crying, "Brother Asbury, they've arrested my husband. They are taking him in for questioning." Francis ran to the window in time to see Judge White handcuffed and taken away. Was he bringing trouble to the Whites? Francis fasted and prayed, but he did not know what to do. He wrote in his journal, "Surely God will stand by me and deliver me. I have no other on whom I can depend." That night he heard a rumor that set his heart racing. Were they coming after him next? He must run. Francis took off out of the Whites' beautiful house. He did not know where he was going, but he must hide somewhere. After hours of running, he looked around. Mud oozed from his shoes. He was lying in the swamp. His clothes were filthy, and his face streaked with tears. The disgusting smell seemed to match his mood. He had tried so hard to do what was right, and everything had gone wrong. He had not made it in school as a child, never did finish his apprenticeship, and he was not a great orator. He had so many flaws, like his impatience. When he tried to say, "Oh," like Whitfield, it only scared his horse. The church had division, and now he was hunted like an enemy. All his dreams lay in ashes.